8 months before the wedding, she murmured his name in her sleep. Just once, a soft exhale that could have passed for a sigh if I'd needed it to. Wide awake in the dark, I heard every syllable, and in that moment, I chose to file it under nothing. By then, I'd built up a whole cabinet full of nothings, stacked and organized. Before I tell you what happened at the altar, you need to understand one thing. I wasn't blindsided. I was a man who'd watched the weather coming every single morning and kept walking out the door without an umbrella. Mark was the name she reached for whenever she needed to explain away a mood. I've just been thinking about some old stuff. That name belonged to a 4-year relationship that had ended, she told me, because he was emotionally unavailable and unreliable. The kind of man who made you feel chosen and then quietly unchose you when something more interesting appeared on the horizon. She claimed she was done with men like that, and I believed her, partly because I wanted to and partly because I stood as the complete opposite of everything she described. Steady, present, the man who remembered her coffee order and her mother's birthday, and the name of the professor who'd been cruel to her in her second year of college. Without quite meaning to, I'd constructed a theory of myself as the answer to a problem she used to have. The problem was I wasn't the answer. I was just the interval between the question and the next time it came up. She picked the chapel, a 19th century stone building with floors worn smooth and a stillness that seemed to live in the walls, absorbed from every ceremony that had ever played out inside it. 200 people filled the pews, her mother in the front row wearing a dress that had taken 4 months to settle on, and my father seated beside her with the expression he wore whenever he was working hard to feel the right thing. The priest had just reached the vows when the doors at the back of the chapel swung open, and I heard them before I turned, that specific groan of old oak on old hinges. Rather than looking toward the door right away, I watched Sarah's face, because some instinct told me her expression would answer the question faster than my eyes could. What crossed her face in that moment was something I'd never seen in 4 years with her. A kind of opening, a light that seemed to arrive from somewhere behind her eyes. And it had nothing to do with the ceremony or the dress or the 200 people or me. Her bouquet dropped straight down and hit the marble floor, and the sound it made was barely anything at all. Running would have been easier to process, but that's not what happened. What actually happened was a pause of maybe 4 seconds. She looked at him, then looked at me. And in those 4 seconds, I saw something that took me a long time afterward to name correctly. She was making a decision. Standing at the altar in the dress and the veil, with 200 witnesses and the candles and the priest and everything that represented, she stopped and decided. And that's when she walked toward the door. Not running, just walking, deliberate and steady as someone who'd already settled the question. Standing there, I watched her go and felt something in my chest go very quiet and cold. The way a room feels when the heat cuts out. Not painful right away, just suddenly empty of warmth. Without following or speaking, I stayed at that altar for what was probably 30 seconds, maybe longer, piecing together what I'd known for years and refused to look at directly. The name in her sleep, the phone face down on the counter, the particular distance that settled into her eyes on the evenings she said she was just tired. I'd assembled that whole picture a long time ago and kept filing it under nothing, because looking at it squarely would have forced a decision I wasn't ready to make. The problem was that I'd handed that decision off to her instead, and she'd made it, finally, at the most expensive possible moment. That part belonged to me. Before I could let go of anything else, I had to sit with that. Facing 200 people without a prepared word in my head, I said the only thing that felt accurate, quietly enough that the back rows had to lean in to catch it. She made the right call, I told them. That's not the kind of thing you're supposed to say at a moment like this, but it happens to be true. After that, I set the ring down on the altar, gently, no dramatics, just a placement, and left through the side door. 40 minutes to get home, with one stop at a gas station on the highway, where I bought a bottle of water and never opened it. Sitting in that parking lot, I kept coming back to the name she'd said in her sleep 8 months ago, and the morning I decided it meant nothing. And then all the mornings after that, when I'd made the same call. 4 years of being the most reliable thing in someone's life. And somewhere in there, I'd mix that up with being the most important thing. Those two things aren't the same. That night, I understood the difference with the kind of clarity that only comes when something is completely and finally over. She called 11 times, each one went to voicemail. Not out of anger, but out of a simple recognition that nothing she could say in those calls would be more true than what I'd already seen at the altar. She'd answered the question without me ever having to ask it, and I had nothing left to follow up on. 14 months have passed since then. The apartment I live in now belongs to me in a way the old life never quite did. Not because it's an upgrade, it's smaller, quieter, costs less, but because every choice inside it came without consulting whether someone slightly elsewhere would approve. A chair I liked, bought without asking anyone's opinion. The windows stay open because I prefer the cold. The middle of the bed is mine. Small things that are not, actually, small things. About 3 months in, my friend Daniel asked whether I was angry. I took the question seriously before answering. I was the placeholder, I told him. You can't be angry at someone for telling you the truth. She just told me very late, at great expense, in front of 200 people. He held my gaze for a moment. And the expense? Worth it, I said. I know the truth now. That's not nothing. Those 4 seconds at the altar still come back to me sometimes. That pause before she walked, and the decision she made inside it. I've come to think of that pause as a kind of gift, not the kind anyone would request, but the kind that costs too much and arrives at exactly the wrong time, and turns out, eventually, to be what set the right thing in motion. She chose the past, which meant I got to choose the future. I'm still choosing it, carefully this time, with my eyes open. The ring is still on the altar. I never went back for it. Some things are meant to stay exactly where you left them, not as monuments, just as honest markers of where something ended and something else began.